Welcome. Welcome to Coming Home to You Masterclass series, where we discuss the key components of coming home to you, rediscovering who you truly are, your authentic self. And so before we start, I wanted to go and give everybody an opportunity to quickly introduce themselves. Starting with Paula, since you're on the top corner for me here.
Good day, ladies and folks out in the wilderness. My name is Paula Margulis. I am a loving, vulnerable, powerful leader. I am a realtor. I've been selling real estate for 12 years. More importantly, I have been choosing my personal development game for 10 years. I have invested a very generous $150,000 into me. And what has that yielded me? An empire, next level success, next level communication, next level authenticity, next level everything. That's what I'm up to. I'm complete.
Thank you. And then Jen, are you going to speak with us, or are you just listening on today?
I can speak.
Great.
Let me get to a spot where I can. So I'm Jen. I am a certified hypnotherapist and breathwork coach. I also work in healthcare, and I am in this container here to just kind of grab that knowledge that Margarita always likes to spit out for us and contribute in whichever way I can.
Thanks for being here. Tammy.
Hi there, I'm Tammy McKinney, and I am the founder of UYes Consulting. And what we do is we develop leaders through coaching and training and speaking. And I think the number one issue for leaders in the world today is trust, gaining trust. So this topic really resonated with me, and I'm happy to contribute.
Pleasure to have you. Thank you. Amanda.
Hello. Thank you so much, Margarita, for having me on. It's such a pleasure to be here. So I'm Amanda Kelly, and I am an embodied self-mastery mentor. And stepping into embodied leadership is the core essence of what I really love doing with people who are in my world. And it started with a cancer diagnosis in 2016. So we're going on 8 years. Fast and furious. I had my remission scan 6 months after diagnosis, but that's when the healing really began. So it really brought me into this beautiful portal of healing into expansion and the frequencies of abundance. So that's all part and parcel of what I focus on.
Oh, beautiful story. Great to have you. Thank you. Allison.
Hi, everyone. Allison Stuckey, as it says. I'm not Patrick. I don't know where you all are, but I'm in Toronto, Canada. And it's really cold out here. I am an energy and spiritual coach, among other things. I'm an energy healer and an intuitive, a medium, a psychic, all of that stuff. But I also have this tangent into corporate life where I help corporate work through their cultural strategy. It's just starting, just designing a program to align core values with the mind, body, spirit connection, because we all know corporate needs help from top down. Paula's laughing.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
The fellow Canadian here. It's great to have you, Allison. Thanks. Gianna.
Oh, thank you. So I work with highly sensitive moms who've experienced childhood trauma, and their emotional cycles are taking a toll on their relationships, and they've become such people pleasers that they don't even have a clear sense of their identity outside of being a mom and a spouse. And I help them move into a place of having more inner peace and self-love, and of course, self-trust.
Yes.
Thank you.
Beautiful. It's an honor to have each and every one of you here today to speak on trust. Trust is something I it was something I'm pretending I didn't know. I've broken trust with the people around me, you know, and a lot of that is because of lack of integrity and being my word and not being consistent or reliable. So before moving forward, like when you think of trust, like what does trust mean to you? Or more importantly, like why is it important? Pam.
Yeah, I think the idea of trust is pretty broad. And but at its simplest form, it's the ability to influence other people. And so I think that without that level of knowing that you're listening or being influenced by somebody that cares for you, and there isn't that level of, I'm trying not to use the word trust, right? There isn't that level of care and respect and being seen and known. We're just highly ineffective. We're highly ineffective in our relationships and our work, in any space where we're interacting with somebody else. So I think for me, at the foundational level, trust is something you build in order to have impact on one another.
I love that, the ability to influence and impact.
Yeah.
Huge component for trusting someone.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything that comes up for them? All right.
I'll share.
Thank you, Amanda.
So trust for me, it kind of goes both ways. So we can look at the lack of trust in our world and social media. But I also think that part of the larger issue, as within, so without, is the self-trust, the inner trust. So this is the core of what I focus on, actually. Yeah. And obviously, when I went through my journey, trust was a huge piece. I was receiving messages, it's not my time to go, and it's my job to heal the family pattern of dying from cancer. Well, that's not a normal way to view a situation like getting a cancer diagnosis. So I really had to lean on that deep inner trust and knowing. And yes, indeed, it got me through. It also gave me the willpower to really focus and to value my health above all. And so to allow myself to really give myself what I needed. So for me, focusing on building that inner trust, that self-trust is so huge and important. And it's part of worthiness as well. Without worthiness, you have no self-trust. Without self-trust, you don't really feel worthy. So it goes really deep. And I think this is a core part of why people feel so disconnected and are unable to take those steps forward in many cases as well.
That's beautiful. Thank you for presencing it being about trust first. That's what I'm up to in this game, is like really going in, and anytime that you want change or growth or love, it starts with you and it starts with going in first. So thank you for bringing us there, because that is definitely where we're going here on this call today. Paula?
Are we there yet? Just wanted to echo Amanda. As soon as you said self-trust, I was like, that's the only game that was in front of me. There was no way for me to access the capacity to trust others if it wasn't first solid in me. So, I mean, and it continues to be the name of my game. 10 years later, I get to meet this fabulous human being, Margarita, in a coaching program. And that is still very much the continuation of a breakthrough for me, is my trust game 10 years later. And it's just new level, new devil, It's like poke, 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 poke. And I acknowledge that that's the game I'm playing. And I acknowledge that that's the space I get to grow. And I have been able to create magic because of that conversation. So yes, Amanda, I think it begins here and will trickle out into the wilderness. Thank you.
Beautiful. So true. Yes, Gianna.
So it's interesting because like I have found with like for me, and I know we talked about this yesterday, I see trust as like three different issues. Like One, trusting in the flow of life, one, trusting people, and then trusting yourself. When we look at trusting ourselves, there's always a level of self-abandonment. Like at some point in time, we abandon a piece of ourselves either to get along or to fit in or to, not get in trouble or whatever it is. And so there's that piece of yourself that you need to like call your power back from whoever you gave it away to then be able to, tune in, like Amanda was saying, and trust that inner guidance moving forward. And so, yeah, that's how I see it also.
Yes, I love that. Trusting the flow of life, right? Because first, when we started the conversation, we all, assumed we were talking about trusting other people. And Amanda lovingly posted the whole trusting ourselves. And now you're bringing out like trusting the flow of life. And a lot of the times that is so true. You don't trust, like you were saying, Amanda, right? You were listening to those, it's not your time to go. And you got to trust that you were here to great generational persons. And so that's beautiful. And that just really began with trusting yourself, like as Paula also stated, and then it trickles out. Thank you. Allison.
I am unmuted. Oh, did you do that? Thank you.
Yes.
I'm usually talking and I'm still muted. The trusting yourself is such a huge part because people don't trust themselves. I know when I'm intuiting something for somebody else, there is such a claircognizance that it is the right message for them. There is no doubt. But when I've got my own stuff going on, if it is something super important, they will give me the hit that you're not wavering on this. But if it's something that is sort of unsure, my monkey brain gets in the way. So I get out of that trusting myself, my inner knowing, all of my gifts, because I intuit all the different ways. But my monkey brain gets in the way. And I think that's what a lot of people have the problem with. They're trying to rationalize it. But when it's something you need to trust, it's not rational. If it's taking you down a path, it's not the one that's expected. It's not the one that you're supposed to be on. You're going with your own intuition, your inner knowing. And I think that's what is the issue with a lot of people, because I don't remember what the statistic is, but people online will buy something because of somebody's recommendation, somebody they have no clue about, Joe Smith in Zimbabwe, recommending it. Oh yeah, I'm going to buy that because it was a 5-star from him, as opposed to their friend saying, this is awesome. Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure.
And that I'm curious about that. Like, have they lost trust, or like, have they not been building trust with their friends? Right?
I think it's more about validation.
They just validation.
Yeah, validation. Well, if most people like that and want that, then I want it too.
It must be good for me.
As opposed to blazing their own path of what they actually want and trusting their own knowing. I trusting somebody having something, I want that, and then somebody else saying, or the validation of everybody else, well, don't get that one. This one's so much better. But I only need the $100 version, not the $500 version. But most people have the $500 version, and that's where most people, they want to be most people. They want to be included.
Yeah, we are all trying to fit in. And a lot of the times, because of that, we don't listen to our intuition. And thank you for bringing that word in to the conversation. Because trust for me really is listening to that instinct, that intuition that is keeping you safe, that is, like our auras and our energies pick up information from the field and we subconsciously register it. And there are times where you're like, yeah, don't go down that street. You don't know why you don't want to go down that street. But if you're like, and you ignore it, chances are something will happen. For instance, I was sitting down waiting for an interview. I was at a coffee shop outside, and this woman who was homeless came out and started to throw things and kick the the sandwich board that was out and the pamphlets that were, the menus that were out there, and just being loud. And usually I don't get fazed by stuff like that because I see it a lot here in LA with the homeless. But for some reason, that particular time, my intuition told me, leave, it's dangerous for you. And so I got up to leave, and then she left. And so I was like, okay, it's fine. And I sat down. Well, she came back like 5-10 minutes later, and she started fighting with me. Like she threw her purse at me, and she was trying to kick me, and it was COVID. And I didn't have my mask on because I was drinking coffee. She's trying to spit at me. And I'm like, what do I do? It's COVID. And like my instinct was to fight back, but I was like, okay, first of all, it's not my fight. It's not my fight, right? And so I was just like, how can I just neutralize this? And I threw my coffee at her face, and then I walked away. But like an instance of like when I should have just listened to my intuition and left. And then how many times have you not trusted yourself, where you found yourself in a place of, when you're like, you have that intuition, I shouldn't wear white because I'm gonna spill on it. You spill on it, you're like, those little moments like that, right? That we, in hindsight, we're like, oh, that was my intuition, my higher learning, my higher intelligence telling me something. But I love what Brené Brown writes about in her Braving the Wilderness book. She talks about braving as an acronym for building the components of trust. And so the first thing she talks about is boundaries, respecting and understanding our own boundaries first, and then those of others. And then being reliable, having reliability in how you're showing up, right? Being consistent and dependable with your actions and your words, being your word. Accountability, being someone who can be accountable, owning your mistakes, apologizing, making amends. Like the coaching program Paula and I are in, every time we have a breakdown in our word, or we don't come through with our commitments, we own our breakdown. I acknowledge my breakdown. What was underneath that? Breaking my word. What did I make more important? And going through that process really helps to uncover and you start to hear yourself all the time, like, oh, I keep doing it. Like, and then you're like, is this what I want? Is this the life that I want? No. And so it really starts to force you to see it so close to your face. You're like, all right, time to take off that mask, right? And then she talks about the vault, the V for vault, right? So the acronym is braving, and it just means to be respectful of people's confidential information, right? If I'm trusting you to tell me something, and then I find out that you tell someone else, that you're breaking my trust, right? And then having integrity, being your word, having the courage to choose your word over being comfortable, choosing what's right over what is fun or easy, and being non-judgmental. Right? I think that when we are around people who we feel are judgy, we're not going to want to open up and be vulnerable with them and trust them, because we're going to worry that they might judge us and criticize us or see us differently. And then the last one is generosity, extending the most generous interpretation to the intentions of your word and actions to others. So having generosity in who you are and how you're giving yourself builds trust with people. Allison.
As you're reading each of those in the acronym, it's all of the stuff that I've done in my personal growth journey to be where I am, to own it, to have integrity with my word, to be vulnerable, to whatever the other ones are. Like, yep, worked on it. Yep. Oh, need help on that. Yep. But so many people are hiding. And it's okay, because society has made it normal to not be, I guess integrity is the best word to describe it, to not have integrity in what you do, and every thought and everything you say and everything you do and showing up and all of that. It's okay in our society to not be. So if you are, you're the outlier. But it's what you learn You have to unprogram everything in your personal growth journey.
Kind of brings back to what Tammy was saying earlier about business and trust being a huge component of what stops people in business.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing that. Amanda?
I just popped to a different square. So I lost the unmute button. Yeah, no, this is so beautiful. And I haven't read that book of Brené Brown's, so thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I totally resonate with all the layers of that journey. But I'm also seeing Gianna's comment. Am I pronouncing that correctly? I hope I am. So she brought up the root chakra beliefs. Root chakra is 100% related to self-trust. And, I was thinking earlier, connecting all the dots. For me, a phrase that I've been using for a few years now is collectively our journey right now, and many people are not quite aware of it yet, but collectively our journey is out of the head into the heart, because we've been so logic brain focused, and this is what was ingrained into us during our education and our childhood and growing up. It's like, go to college, get the job, and then, work, do. And the heart is meant to lead the mind, but we've flipped it around and we've suppressed our inner wisdom. And when we don't have the capacity to enter into our heart, then we don't have the capacity to trust ourselves. And the heart and the solar plexus are very intimately linked as well. And that is the seat of our intuition. Actually, according to some, the solar plexus is the new brain that's coming online. It's already seen as the second brain. It's this location of the second brain. It's our instinct, our intuition. It's taking in all sorts of information from the environment that our brains don't have time to process. But when we think about it that way, we even have the layer of like chemicals in our environment suppressing our intuition, our capacity to really tune in, because our digestion is so off. So there's so many layers to this journey of unpacking why we have a lack of ability to trust. And when people are operating out of integrity, it's generally because they're operating in ego. And what we're being guided into now with the balancing of the masculine and feminine as well, the heart is more the feminine energy, is the rise of the divine feminine is about bringing harmony and balance. It's not that the feminine is going to take over, kind of like the feminism distortion. We got a little too pantsuit oriented there, and it's taking on that masculine energy that is still a distortion. And this is why so many women are stressed out and strung out, and they're not feeling fulfilled. So what I think like is the core for me, I do a lot of chakra focused work, like activations, and really focusing on the different aspects of the chakras, because that's the embodiment piece. And it's those lower chakras that hold so much. So when we get into trust, working on, yes, the heart, but working on those lower three chakras, because also the sacral is our creation power, which has also been suppressed. So when we trust ourselves, we're actually able to take those steps forward into creating what we're here to create, whether it's a business or an actual baby or a book, all the layers of things. So yeah, for me, it's just tying so many pieces together to really focus on this trust piece as well. I just see the dots connecting on so many levels.
You're so funny, Margarita. Oh, I see. Okay, okay, I got it. Amanda, I think like you're my soul sister. We must speak after this event.
Oh, sure.
It's like everything. I was hoping and praying that I would connect with some people that are like-minded. Thank you, Margarita. Know this, ladies. I'm choosing to become the Prime Minister of Canada. I am going to become the Prime Minister of Canada. Why? Because Canada needs some femininity, needs some divine feminine. And if it's to be, it's up to me. And so Why all of your stuff lands for me is because up until I chose me, I was a man. Yes. In fact, I would go out on dates with men and they would tell me how I emasculate them. And know that nature versus nurture. Like I developed into that version of myself. So I can appreciate what's out in the wilderness. So it took me being highly misunderstood and feeling all kinds of pain and trauma and a really potent desire to say, this sucks balls. No pun intended. And I want something else. Like it just was a horrible experience being me out of my femininity. And it took me 8 of my 10 years of growth to find it. And it was by choice. So what I think is what I'm going to choose to create for society out there is, hey guys, however it is, you get to choose, right? I choose to trust. I choose to trust my journey. I choose to trust the divine. I choose to look at myself. I choose to be in this container. So like what I want to bring society is the power of choice. Because like, had I not chosen it, I wouldn't be here creating this and being with you, right? It took me saying, fuck this shit. And I chose something else. However it came. And I have suffered a lot of trauma, but I don't use that word anymore. And I don't have that relationship anymore. My trauma equal pain. Pain brought me learning and lessons and power. No pain, no gain. And maybe having grown up with an Olympic athlete, that was part of the systemization too, right? It's like no pain, no gain. No pain, no gain. Push, hustle, rigor. And like that didn't serve me either. So not only will I bring the power of choice, but I will bring the feminine touch. It's like, oh my gosh, it's okay. Relax. Let's take a breath. Let's talk about it. Let's think about it. Is it loving? No? Well, let's make it so. And so I would say this whole conversation begins with personal power and the choice to choose it. All day. Yay. I'll see you after, Amanda.
Yes, the power to choose. It does begin with a choice. And so choose you. And so thank you for being here and choosing you. Tammy.
Yeah, so I think it's fascinating that we so quickly got to, okay, we can't trust other people if we can't trust ourselves, right? And there's so much truth in that. And, you know, I mostly work with executives and senior leaders, and we all have the same struggles. It doesn't matter, you know, what position you hold in society. We all struggle with this issue of self-trust. And I think, you know, as many of you have shared, it stems from, you know, the socialization and the perspectives and the beliefs that were fed to us very much throughout our life. And so I think that the key piece to even begin to trust yourself is that we have to go back and do that self-work. I mean, at some point you just wake up and say, this is not who I'm meant to be, and I can't go any further until I figure this out. And so thus the journey of personal growth, thus the journey of healing. And my own life experience is riddled with things that I could blame for, you know, who I became. But that is not, as Paula was sharing, you know, that is not meant to be our story. We get to choose a different story. And so when I take people on the journey of, okay, let's reconnect to the best version of you. How do we get there from here? I mean, it really starts with a deep inventory of like, where are you at and what have you been through? And what is it that you believe about yourself, about others, about the world? And I'm a person of faith, right? So where does that come in if that's a piece for you? And then going into like, do I even know my core values? Like if we're talking about setting boundaries, if we're talking about performing from our best self or trusting ourselves, we have to know who we are. Excuse me. And so core values, strengths and weaknesses, passions and interests, fears and limiting beliefs. And I'm sure, Margarita, you run into this in your work all the time. I mean, so many women, especially if you've raised a family or been in a marriage a long time or in a bad marriage, I don't even know what my favorite color is anymore, right? Like I hear that kind of response, even at the executive level. Very worldly, successful people don't know themselves. And so it's very hard to get grounded back into what should my boundaries even be? How should I even speak? How do I even be loving? You know, I help people live, love, and lead, you know, for the mission that they're on. I work with a lot of nonprofit leaders, so they're very compassion driven. They mostly do not take care of themselves at all. I spoke at a conference not that long ago, and I hate to even say this, but like 70% of the people were grossly obese. And this is an industry that is stopping the cycle of child abuse, right? And so the issue is they put more value on serving other people, taking care of other people than they do on starting with themselves. And so I can go off, you know, on a whole platform on this, but the idea being we've got to come back first and foremost and do that self-work of like, wait, who am I now? How did I get here? What do I need to heal? What do I need to do to grow, to develop personally, you know, go through that discovery process again of like, who am I now? And so I got divorced after 33 years, and he basically just disappeared from me and my 4 kids. My kids have severe mental health issues. And so we've been in and out of hospital 17 times in the last 6 years, and, you know, just trying to keep them alive. And I share all that to say I lost myself in so many ways from Sunday and all that, right? Like my priorities had to shift. I had to shift. I wasn't going to let my children end their life if there was anything I could do about it. I wasn't going to, you know, succumb to being this single divorcee that's living as a victim, as generationally has happened in my family. And so I think that, you know, from a real personal experience standpoint, that's where, just like most of you, I had to go in and do this deep personal development work. And the more that I did it and the more healing work that I've done, the more I realize, again, like I started, everybody at every level struggles with this until you do this work, until you really commit to trusting yourself, to knowing yourself so you can trust yourself. And then when you come lovingly, when you come freely as your authentic best self, then that's where the trust flows the other way back. So yeah, that's it. I could go on.
Yeah, so many beautiful things that you shared there, Tammy. And later on, I definitely want to ask you guys what it looks like, right, to start trusting yourself. Go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so I just had to piggyback off of that because know thyself is such a core aspect of what's been guiding me on my path and my journey. I even when I like went on a little pilgrimage myself to the Oracle of Delphi in Greece, ancient Greece. Well, it's currently there, but the energy of ancient Greece is very much there. But this, to me, I just keep coming back to it. It's even the name of one of my modules in my core program as well. And I just wanted to share because I was trying to anchor in, you know, some thoughts on trust, and I just kind of had some thoughts come through. So I just said, the more deeply you come to know yourself, the more deeply you come to trust yourself. Just before this call, that I wrote that down. And, you know, it's just so true. People don't know who they are at a really core, deep soul level. I call it that myself, the soul level, which again brings me back to this whole out of the head into the heart thing. We're externalizing and outsourcing our power in so many ways in this world. And we just lose sight of who we really are. And we lose sight of what brings us joy and what fulfills us, what our passions are. And it's just like, I think it's really quite sad, the state that society has gotten into. I mean, you know, the obesity thing really struck me, and it's becoming quite normalized to be very unhealthy. You know, it's not, I understand that people struggle with that, but we should be addressing root causes. And that's very much not what society is doing right now, because we know that is a burden on the body. And it's a burden on the financial layer of healthcare, which I don't even like to call it that because it's a sick care model. But, you know, that's a whole other rabbit hole to get into. But this know thyself core piece, you're going to then respect yourself as well. And you're going to choose to show up for yourself in all the different ways, including having a physical, healthy body temple. That's another way that I really like to focus my work, anchoring in the physical too. That's the embodiment piece. You know, I just gave myself a challenge this year. It's kind of crazy, but a challenge to do 100 push-ups like consecutively, which is a lot. And I wasn't really, having super, super high expectations that I'll be able to do 100. But what I did was I could already do 10 because I have a belief that body is easy. I barely work out, but I can do 10 push-ups. And I started on January 1st with 10 push-ups. And this morning I had to take a couple days off. This morning I did 20 in a row without stopping. So, it's also where our belief set is and how worthy we are to show up for ourselves. So when you show up for yourself in that way, it also builds self-trust, right? So there's just like, what is my core belief? Knowing myself, know thyself, knowing myself. One of my core values is that I get to be healthy and body is a priority because the body is the vessel. Health is wealth. Without our health, I learned this the hard way. We have nothing. I faced cancer. I faced death. It was a huge growth the size of a grapefruit inside my chest, compressing my heart into my lungs. It wasn't some like small thing. So, and that was all energetic, honestly. But anyway, that self-trust piece, it's really coming to know yourself. So thank you so much, Tammy, for bringing that up because it's so, so important. It's really key.
It's really key. And you brought up something, Amanda, because the question for me was like, what do you think creates disconnect to where you don't trust yourself? And you hit it, worthiness. I feel like that's the foundation, the bottom of that really is everything. So thank you for sharing that. Paula.
And just to bring you on the journey of my mind. So Margarita and I have chosen some education and some information that empowers us in this way. We are creators. We create our worlds. We are masterful creators when we choose this game. So are you, ladies. You're all doing some pretty extraordinary things and you made it. So you chose that. You created that. And now society has created this climate that we're in. If you believe in Mother Nature, which we are all ladies, we are all cyclical, fair? And in the cycle of life, in the cycle of nature, we are where we are because that is the cycle we are in, right? Is it a juicy one? No. Is it a sexy one? No. And it's a cycle. It will come to a close. Look at us. We're very powerful women in here and we're energizing in our gifts. So are we changing the game? Yeah, we are. And so I feel society has just swung the pendulum on this way, and us ladies, we're going to bring it this way, back to a healthy medium, a healthy balance. But in order for us to have shown up as ourselves and creating that we get to create, we got to go through caca. We got to feel this shit. Had I not felt the shit, I wouldn't be here. So shit has a value. Caca has a value, right? I just found out that people are receiving shit transplants thanks to the microbiome in the shit. Someone is collecting someone else's shit. Not the point, but the point is this. We are in a shitty climate, but it's perfect because we get to be us, creators, and shift. So for as caca as it is out there, am I grateful? Yes, because I'm here with you. So ladies, we have a mission and we have a purpose, right? We are, in essence, cleaning people. We're going to clean up the shit, which is the mountain of caca that is engaging in squeezing the life out of people. And I'm just going to boil it down to what I believe is brass tacks. You don't know what you don't know, and you can't see what you can't see. Until 10 years ago, when I met my coach, I didn't know anything. I didn't know it was possible. She gave me a 30-second infomercial, and I'm like, I love her. Sign me up. She changed my whole life in 30 seconds with one line. So is it possible that the society is ready for us to come and deliver that one little iota of a notion of possibility and opportunities? Yeah, they're hungry. Why? Because we're here. And we're here in the masses. We're just here right now, 7 of us. And there's 44 in the container we're in. And there's 150 in the other container that's right now. Like there's transformational leaders everywhere. And that's because society asked for us. So is the pendulum being swung the other way? Yeah, because we're here having this conversation, energizing in this way. So I have nothing but hope. I have nothing but gratitude. And I am so fucking excited to co-create with all of you. I'm complete.
Love your energy, Paula. And every time you say like, I got some caca scoops, it just makes me laugh every time. Because it's true, like when you see it that way and you can just have grace and humor about it, you allow yourself to be free and not judge yourself or criticize, which is I think what stops us from really wanting to go in deep, because we're our worst critics and it stops us. So we get to have grace with ourselves, love ourselves. I'm learning to fall in love with myself again. And it's a beautiful thing. I get the chills every time I say that. It's been amazing. Jen.
Yeah, Paula, I love your energy. It's so great. Yeah, so I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on the pendulum too, because we are seeing as a society that self-care is going into a very big upswing on how much people are spending on self-care. So that is a very positive thing. I am very grateful for that. I am grateful that I was able to find things to help me, because for me, I was having panic attacks at work, and that's what caused me to seek a solution. So really, you know, we're so outside of our bodies right now. Like, I would say that even now, like I'm still a work in progress, right? Like every single person is a work in progress, and just the willingness to go there and seek out solutions for yourself. Like everybody has a thing that was the turning point for them. And to really be able to share that with others and let others know that they're not alone, because we all feel alone in our own caca, I would say. Uh, we don't know that other people are going through the same thing. We think we're on this little island by ourselves. So yeah, I am very grateful that we are shifting into a different direction now.
Yes, Jen, I love that. Because this is exactly why this masterclass was born. Because I saw the importance of sharing our truths, because the more we do, the more we realize, oh, that's just like me. That's just like me. You're just like me. Oh, I have that same thing. And so what is beautiful about that is that you really start to feel a belonging. And you start to not feel so broken, right? No one's broken, but you stop feeling like this horrible person. And once we start to really understand that the work and all the things that we think about ourselves were not our own thoughts or beliefs, that we picked them up somewhere in our lives from people that we, were surrounded by. And when we give ourselves permission to not choose that victim story anymore, there's so much power that gets created. There's so much freedom in the choice. And so choosing yourself is definitely the first key. I can't say that enough. Like, joy is a choice. I was put on a stretch to have like 33 joyful experiences. And I was just like, oh, sure, that sounds easy. But it was like in 10 days, right? So I was like, oh, okay. And so what that did was that it caused me to be intentional about finding joy in the mundane things that I was doing. And it was a choice that I was making to choose joy in the doing dishes, doing laundry, like whatever I was doing in traffic, whatever, I was finding joy and such. And that was just all, and it shifted my whole day. I did not experience any kind of triggering, activating, nothing of that sort, because I was in my joy, and joy is so powerful. And joy is actually a radiant circuit. So when you do thumbs up and you smile, it activates your radiant circuit. And it really, and when you're looking at beautiful scenery and you just go, when you put your hands here, it actually helps that joy radiant circuit go deeper into your energy systems. And it starts to bubble up, and then your energies start to remember and recall what it feels like to be joyful and your radiance. And there are so many radiant circuit breakers, is what Donna Eden likes to call them, circuit breakers. And that's all negative talk. It's all negative talk. It's all the I can't, and I can't, and I won't. it never happens. It's all the defeatist negative attitudes is what breaks that innate joy that you have. And so one way to shift that is just to reframe your limiting beliefs. I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. Oh, I'm learning how to do that, and I will master it when I practice, as I practice. It's just one way to reframe something. So what are some ways that you see practical for yourself and how you gained your worth to start trusting yourself? Go ahead, Gianna.
Okay. So one of the ways that I have is just the first is becoming aware of what my limiting beliefs were. And then, accepting that that's where I was at, and then giving myself the time and space to like process through. So I use EFT. So it's like, instead of trying to like override by saying like if like I'm not good enough, which like most of the population has that belief, right? Like, so instead of trying to override it with I am worthy 1,000 times, I can just tap on I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. I never thought I was good enough. No one thinks I'm good enough. My whole family doesn't think I'm good enough. I've been shown 1,000 times how I'm not good enough. And honoring where I was at and how that felt for me and the messages that I received, and allowing myself time to bring that up, to process through it, to feel it, and then like release it when I was ready to. And then it's so much easier to then rewire the brain for, oh, I am worthy of all life has to offer. So much simpler and faster than me just trying to come up with a positive affirmation and override it, that subconscious belief pattern that could take me months and months. So, releasing it in that way and just accepting that that's how I feel, right? And for every single one, nobody listens to me. I don't matter. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not, whatever enough, and that for me was like a huge game changer. And so in those moments when you're starting to feel triggered, it's like, what am I saying to myself? And that is probably the view in which I see life, because my subconscious is constantly looking for evidence and proof that my beliefs are true. So if then that's the lens in which I'm projecting onto every situation that happens to me. When I have this new belief, I can now, when things happen, stand with open curiosity and be like, I wonder why that's happening. That's interesting. Instead of making it about me and making it how I see everything in the world. I laugh because, our parents, like probably like from my generation, at least, they would say like, oh, the world doesn't revolve around you. The world doesn't revolve around you. And I remember when I started the healing journey, I thought, the world does revolve around me. However I see the world, that's how I apply it. And it does revolve around me. So if I see it as this unfriendly, horrible place and everything's bad and people don't like me and I'm not worthy and blah, 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 that is how my world revolves around me. So me changing the way I see the world is the way now the world revolves. So anyways.
So true. Shifting your perspective, right? Like looking for the evidence of your greatness and not why you have the not good enough nerd. Paula. I'm getting really good at muting everybody.
You're awesome. Lady, that sticks out for me because, anyway, but that's not what I wanted to say. There's just so many juicy points. It's just like I had the one connection. It eludes me. Hang tight. No, skip me. I'll come back.
Okay. I just wanted to go back to what you were saying, Gianna, about EFT. For those of you who don't know what EFT is, it's emotional freedom technique, and it's a tapping that really repatterns your nervous system. And it's helped people with PTSD, phobias, like in one session of like 10, 15 minutes of tapping. And I actually tapped into my worthiness. And that is what started my journey of healing. It was when I started to actually tap into that worthiness as I started taking care of myself, and my depression was started to lift. And I chose life, and I was able to choose life. You know, I was having suicidal ideology up until that point. And I was just like, something's got to give. Something's got to give, because this is not a place that feels good in my heart. I felt at that point, since I was 6 or 7, 8 years old, I knew I was meant for a purpose greater than myself, for bringing healing to the world. And I found myself in the car choosing life, because I was like, this is not the version of myself that I remember. Like, what happened to that 8-year-old girl that had all these dreams and aspirations and just lived freely, right? And that's a whole nother conversation of like what brings you down, but at choosing to see the greatness in you. Whoever wants to jump off. Amanda, I think you were first.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Gosh, I'm loving this conversation so much. You are all so magical and wonderful and powerful and full of wisdom. And yeah, such an honor again to be here. So thank you. So EFT, I literally did it this morning myself. It's a practice I do as well. So just to reiterate and corroborate that, yes, it's a beautiful, beautiful practice that once you learn it, you can just kind of go through the process yourself. And again, this is very intuitively led. So it's a way to get you into your intuition, and also honing your intuition will help you feel like grounded in the process, I guess you could say. So the more you hone your intuition, the more confident you will be in guiding yourself through these processes. But it's very much also about the self-inquiry. The shadow work is another term that I'll put on it. It's really going deep into, again, to bring up the word triggers, to going into the triggers, getting curious about why that reaction happened, and then getting excited about it because you're like, yay, I get to go to another layer. And I always say, the deeper we dive, the higher we rise. So yeah, it just like it hits, right? So it's like, if we're afraid to go there, we're never gonna get there. If we're afraid to go into those depths that are really, it's locking our life force, it's locking our energy. So if we don't go there, we're never going to feel fully alive. So this is a way to come back to life too. Another phrase that is probably going to be the title of something, a talk or a book, love yourself back to life. So feel worthy enough to actually do what you need to do to get yourself out of the situation. It's very much about choosing joy. I hashtag that sometimes myself. And yeah, sometimes like we're just going through stuff. There's a lot coming up in the collective. There's a lot of people operating in trigger. And also, if you're on this path, crabs in the bucket, people don't like to see you move forward in many cases. So feeling worthy of choosing yourself is not easy. I also do want to reiterate that, because it can be really challenging to break free from those old relationships, those old patterns and ways of being, because people want to see you stay there too. Especially if it's family, especially if it's even a partner or, your close friends, the amount of like friend groups I've evolved out of at this point. Not that, they have a, bad relationship. It's just that I've also done a lot of traveling. I've lived all around the world. I've done all sorts of things. But yeah, perspective shifting was also brought up. That's what I studied in my master's degree. I have 2 psychology degrees. So yeah, when we shift our perspective on our reality, then we can shift our reality physically. I love that so much too, Jana. Again, you're just coming in with like these really beautiful bombs. The world does revolve around you. Yeah, it's so true. We create our reality. So yeah, it's just there's so many different layers to the practices and the work that I've done to get here. And it's not always been a clear, smooth journey whatsoever. I had no roadmap. I didn't know what the heck I was doing when I started this journey. And that's why I've really tried to distill and condense the best of the best so that it doesn't take other people 8 years, 7 years, whatever the heck, to get where they want to go, because we don't have time for that. We need people stepping up into their power like right now. So yeah, tapping, self-inquiry, the shadow work. I just one other piece that was coming through is the disconnection piece, the spiritual disconnection. I feel, so for me, my path has been very spiritual, but it's also very, I call it practical spirituality, like practical magic, because it's all about being in the body, and it's all about remembering who we really are at a soul level. To me, in my humble opinion, is a fractal of source itself. It's creation energy itself expressed in the physical. So when we remember we are part of the divine, that we are inherently divine, we remember our worthiness, and then we have more trust in life to get back to that trusting in the flow of life. I know this is the next topic for next week, but I always say surrender to the flow, because when you get there, you can open up and surrender to the divine guidance as well, and the signs and synchronicities will continue to guide you on your path, and that requires a great deal of trust. So it's just all part and parcel, but then you get that feedback when you do listen to your intuition. I've turned it down many times, obviously, but when you do, you get that feedback that it's your life becomes more of a flower that's blossoming rather than one that's wilting and dying. It's sorry, that's a kind of dark visual maybe, but but we get stuck in these patterns that are really not life affirming. So what are we doing if we're not growing? I mean, the opposite of growth is that downward spiral. So I just went on a massive tangent there. So thank you, everybody. But
no, I love your passion. It's really coming through. So thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful. Allison.
Love everything that you just said, Amanda. I resonate with it all. A couple of things. We were talking about belonging. People want to belong. When you change, you are shifting their beliefs. You're shifting something because you've changed, and you're upsetting them. And you're pulling threads of their beliefs that they have to, if they're open to it, unravel it, and in turn change themselves. And a lot of people are stuck in these boxes of their beliefs and how it's supposed to be, the expectations of what and who they are based on X, Y, and Z, and they're not willing to go into the deep growth. So when you change and you delve into all of these things, it upsets them. So you're making them uncomfortable. People don't want to be uncomfortable. My personal journey, I do a huge advocate of EFT. I also, with the work that I do, it's a little bit different, but I do a lot of energy healing. We're all here right now with all of this gunk, this goo, this junk, this stuff that's stuck to us energetically from past lives, from ancestral lives. It's literally in our DNA. So I have done a massive amount, intense past life healing and ancestral healing, which has 100% shifted me about face, about everything. I stepped out of a long-term marriage, not quite as long as Tammy's, in 2022, and just dove into the personal growth because he couldn't handle the version of me that was growing. And I'm like, you can't stop it. Bye. And it's really about that belonging piece. They don't want to see you go outside the box, expand to your true power, expand in your infinite power from source, expand into who you are here to be, what you are meant to do, and on purpose. And it's a beautiful thing when you can actually heal all of that stuff. And I've done massive amounts of healing, had huge issues ancestrally in past lives coming through that were really affecting my relationship with my daughter. And after huge amounts of healing, we have a really nice relationship now. And that was not the case a year ago. So I've stopped the cycle. Everything past comes to me. I'm like, nope, enough's enough. And moving forward, it's all healed. I want to tell you this story. The summer of 2022, I had moved out of my marital home. I was in the process of getting a separation agreement signed. My ex, he's kind of there, but not there. Not super supportive of my kids. My kids are adults, so it's a little bit different. But I was in the mode of stepping out of my marriage, moving forward in my business, severing all ties to him. And I was getting literally like 2 fingers poking into my left kidney sphere. And it was weeks. I'm thinking, what is going on? It was like somebody's digging their fingers into my kidney. And my spiritual mentor, who is absolutely amazing, she said, kidney sphere, left side, those are your ancestors. They don't want you to step out. It's not safe. It's not safe to go without a man. It's not safe to be on your own. It's not safe to step into your power. And energetically, I healed this. Like, guys, I'm going. So you back off. This is not you. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And they'd been very suppressed ancestrally. I can go back about 5 generations ancestrally, and I know which line it was. I'm like, oh, okay. So they're fearful for me stepping out of the patriarchy. And okay, let's get rid of that energy because I don't want to take that on. And that's old news. Let's move to the new. And it was a huge pivotal moment realizing that I have power over the healing of all of these things. And I'm a huge advocate for healing the emotional and physical pain because our physical pain, as you guys know, is the huge indicator of what needs healing. So I go a step further and release that energy quite quickly, can manipulate it quite quickly out of my body. So just somebody here had a headache about 10 minutes ago. You're welcome. Came in, I'm like, no, let's get rid of that.
I love that. Yes, I was actually able to heal myself from chronic hip pain, and it was shame and guilt I was holding on to. Power in going in and asking and getting curious. Paula.
Like a fresh perspective, new perspective, neither here nor there. My perspective. Like I said, I grew up with an Olympic athlete, right? So as I continue to choose personal development, I get all this feedback. Why are you still in this game? Why do you continue to spend money? And I'm like, because I'm in the Olympics of my own life. I am an athlete. As an athlete in the world of Paula, I am training, right? And no pain, no gain, right? Like I can tell you that, yes, I endured a lot of trauma. That was like nothing in comparison to facing my darkness. I swear to God. Woo, another breakthrough. Oh my God, there's more. I swear to God. I tell you, Olympic athletes got nothing on us. Humanity's got nothing on us. And like what I want to say to that is, like, we could choose a story that pain doesn't serve us. I'm going to beg to differ. We could choose to say that the darkness inhibits us. Well, it's in us, no matter what. You cannot run. No, but you can be friendly. Cool. So like, here's the choice. And like, Allison, you literally just called it power. You have the power to choose something. You have the power. So like, why I'm bridging the connection between being an Olympic athlete and power is because I knew pre-coaching that I was powerful. I had been choosing really extraordinary things. So my kaka growing up was, you're too crazy, Paula. We don't understand you. You're crazy. My mom even said, I'm tired of watching you jump into the deep end of an empty pool. To which my reply was, I'd be fucking dead. If it was empty, I'd be dead, Mom. Am I dead? No, I'm right here. So like, I'm a risk taker. One of my benefits, it would seem. So like in the risk, I was like, whoa, I did that? Holy fuck, that's me? And so when the coaching came and I was so unsatisfied and totally under the mountain of shit that is life, I was like, okay, this is going to be major. Every breakthrough, this is going to be major. Every time I choose coaching and spend money, this is going to be major. Hey, Margarita, we just had last week intensive too. On Sunday, you had talked to me. This is going to be major, but what do I know? I know I got this. I know I choose this. I know that this is for my highest good. And so I face pain with open arms. I face challenge with fucking gusto. And so I think if every human being could entertain their lives as their own Olympics and their own movies, and they're the creators and they have choice and power, I think this would be a very different world. I think trust wouldn't be in the conversation anymore, because in the personal power is like, whoa, that person gives me red flags. No, don't go there. Whoa, like we're tuned into intuition. We're tuned into our bodies. We're tuned into the divine, all by saying, I fucking choose it. So like trust is sexy and juicy, but it comes from somebody being powerful and empowered to say, first is me, then is the rest. And so like, I love this trust game, but I feel like it's in the middle of the layers. It feels like it's not the source or the beginning of the conversation, or even first base. First base is like, who am I? What am I capable of? And then is like, okay, now that I'm capable of that, and there I am, and I'm fucking cool. Yes. Now I've got boundaries. Now I have choice. Now I know how to enforce. Now I know how to, all the things. So it's like, yeah, trust is maybe grade 2. Kindergarten is grade 1. No, kindergarten. No, it's kindergarten, junior kindergarten, whatever. You get the idea. I'm complete.
Olympics of your life. I love that. Yes, I get to see my life as my personal Olympics. And my husband's a movie director. And so he would love that whole like metaphor that you use, like being your own movie creator of your life. How beautiful would your life look if you 10, 20 years ago had already, or maybe we never had these limiting beliefs? Like how different would our lives look if we all just operated from 100% responsibility, neutrality, and then standing in your power of your truth. And that's why it's so important for me to bring this kind of work to moms, parents, or even young adults before they become parents, to really uncover and get underneath those limiting beliefs so that they don't keep bringing it forward into their to create a generational pattern. And I think two of us here in this call today brought up generational and ancestral patterns, or like karma, or whatever people call that. And it really is just how we're brought up and the patterns that we see that we take on subconsciously. It's modeling. And as society we're at a place now technology-wise where our evolution hasn't been able to catch up to. So like we have no wherewithal on how to navigate social media, how to navigate having information available, readily available to us. Then to top it off, we don't even know which is true and which isn't. And now you have AI. Now you're like I'm feeling like more and more people are starting to trust less and less what the truth is. Because no one's out there calling people out on their stuff, right? It's like we don't feel safe to want to stand in our truth because we are the outliers, the naysayers, the people that are too much. Or there she goes again. Oh my gosh, she has to be seen and heard. Or they call you crazy because you're the only one going against the society's drift and mediocrity. What it really is like we're okay with freaking living in mediocrity. Like, and then we wonder why we don't have the life that we dream, that we aspire to, with abundance, with love and connection and success. We're not taking the time to really be that change that we want to see. Tammy.
Yeah, thanks. It's interesting because, like I said in the beginning, the greatest reason that trust is important is for influence, right? If you didn't have to influence anybody, if you didn't have to influence yourself, you wouldn't have to trust yourself, right? But we direct our thoughts, our feelings, our actions to our life results, to our life experience. And it all starts with what we believe, right? Our beliefs lead us to our thoughts, that lead us to our feelings, that lead us to our actions. And so in that, back to what do you really believe about yourself, about the world, about other people is really foundational. And, when you asked us sort of about like, how did we reconnect to our worth and what did we do? I had to increase my belief. And a lot of that came from stepping into things. I mean, crazy things like, I was on a road trip just trying to escape for a while, just to catch some respite. And I stopped and put an offer on a house in another state. And by the time I got home, I said, well, I can't do that. I don't have the money, but I wanted to feel it. I wanted to feel what it felt like to actually do that. And I got a lot of good knowledge from that. Like I could do this. This is where I could be. Stepping into relationship and dating after being married for so long. Holy cow, after being with the same person since I was 19 years old, dating, that's a whole nother level of seeing where you don't feel worthy, right? And I think that that's where also we as society play it safe so much. And I think Paula was talking about being a risk taker. Like I am not risk averse, and I never thought of being a fearful person. You get me on a jet ski, in my car, in an airplane, whatever, I'm gonna go as fast and far as I can. But when we start talking about what holds us back in our work, in our relationships, in our life, it is fear, right? That fear of being rejected, fear of being not good enough, fear of being successful, fear of failing, right? Those same 4 basic fears. If we really, really do that self-work to evaluate, like, why am I not creating this world that I say that I want, this life that I say that I want? There is some fear underneath it. And some fear is worth acknowledging and saying, okay, that's a sign, like you were sharing about the coffee shop, right? Like there was something there that said I should be fearful of this situation, I should go. But there was also something in you that said, if I stay, I can handle this, right? And so I think that this whole idea of how do we regain our worth is we've just got to test ourselves. Like we've got to step into things and see possibility and remind ourselves what we're worthy of, remind ourselves what we're capable of. And then the interesting thing, and I'll just use the dating example, you find that the other people are just as insecure as you are, in so many ways that you're like, oh, wait, what I say do makes you feel a certain kind of way. And then you're like, okay, it's just easier not to deal with people, right? And I think that this is a big problem we see in corporations, in parenting. We don't want to feel that rejection, not from our kids, not from our partner, not from our employees, not from our boss. And we may not call it that, but as a leader, we get to step in and say, we see you, we know you, we value you, we're in this with you, right? And that's where people start to trust you. If you can step in and say, no matter what this organization or these people throw at me, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to be there. I trust myself to be in it, even if I don't have all the answers. That's where we really get the momentum in our own life, in our businesses. As business owners or, even an employee in an organization, you can lead from any space that you're in. And when you lead yourself first, that is the example you're setting for everybody else, right? Whether it's your kids. And even though my kids, have strayed far from the beliefs or the values or whatever that I thought I raised them with, it doesn't matter. They still continue to show up in the ways that I've modeled for them that are important, right? The love, the compassion, the generosity, the hospitality, even when maybe the things that they post on social media don't agree with something that I might say or how I might say it, that's not the important stuff, right? And so I think that the more, again, just coming back to that, the more you know and trust yourself, the more you step into that, the more you role model that, the more the people that you care about are influenced by you, are influenced to trust you, and are influenced to trust themselves so that they can step into their power regardless of your differences, right? We want people to be able to step in and just that whole conversation around the masculine and feminine energy. I mean, I was married to an addict. I worked in the chemical industry. I was the young female that got whistled at all the time. Like, I had to step into my masculine energy to run my household, to have my corporate career. And I didn't lose sight of my femininity. I didn't lose sight of that balance or that harmony that we're talking about in such a way that it was completely gone. But I did have to do a lot of work to come back to that and say, wow, how has being in this industry, how has being in this marriage taken away what is authentically mine to own in the first place? So anyway, I could go on and on, but I think that whole question around how do you come back into your worth is, again, you've just got to do that self-work. You've got to do that self-work and say, wait, who am I? And if you don't know, start taking those risks, start stepping into those situations. I've always said, I can't sing for nothing. Well, how do I know? Like, I've never taken a singing lesson in my life, right? And so I still haven't. I don't care. But but there are things, right? And that's the only way that you can say, you know what, that isn't for me. That isn't who I am. That isn't my talent, my strength, my gift. And I really don't care about developing it. And we get to be okay with that. Anyway, so many different directions this conversation has gone, and I'm just so grateful for it because it really, really brings me back to, okay, where am I still needing to do that self-work myself? Right. And the more we do it for ourselves, the more we get to coach other people through it. And really, this whole idea of just telling people how to think or telling people what to believe or telling people, it doesn't work. I mean, that's why we know that coaching is the most effective. Coaching is about asking people, what do you believe? What do you think? Because most people don't stop and even ask themselves, what do I believe? What do I think? What do I value? And so from there, that's where, we get to lead it. We get to lead other people where we want them to go, our clients, our kids, our family. Anyway, so many things.
So many great golden nuggets there, Tammy. Oh, I love it. And it brings me to going to be the next segment after I hear Paula's share about strategies to building and maintaining trust in our society. Go ahead, Paula.
It'd be fun to know. So like, I feel like where we've been so far is like what's behind us and sort of how we've gotten to where we've gotten to. I'd be curious to learn, where are we right now? So like, where am I in my self-trust game? I choose to rank myself in all of my thoughts to see how true. Is that true, Paula? Let's find out. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give myself about a 7.5 out of 10. So says my intuition, Amanda. I'm like, hey, what are we saying? What's happening? And then 7.5 out of 10. And what's in the gap is confidence. And why I'm shy on the confidence is, like I said, new game. Well, I didn't say this yet, but new game, new results, new level, new devil, right? Like I've already told you. I'm choosing to run for federal position here in this country. And like, I got a lot of stimulation all around me, ladies. Paula, who do you think you are? Do you have any experience? Do you know what you're doing? Like, I got all of that, a lot. And do you know what I get to choose? It's my personal strength, my personal power, and my self-trust. And more importantly, thanks to the spirituality conversation, is, do I trust in the divine? Yes, I do. If there's one thing I know, will I be prime minister? Yes. When? Don't know. Don't care. I'm in this for the long game. And do I trust in divine timing? Yes. And when I lose my shit day to day and I'm overcome by the caca on the outside, what do I know? I go back to what do I know? And what do I know? The universe has my back. This is my mission. It will happen when it's supposed to happen. So like, I'm powerful enough that even in the gap of not enough confidence or not as much as I'd like to have, or not enough power to really hold on to that energy, when I'm not in my thriving best, I go to what I know. And it took 10 years of coaching to give me that toolkit. to access when I'm not shining my brightest, right? So like even the leaders, they would say that they've got room to grow. They would say that they've got room to improve. And what are they bringing? What they know. So like our trainer in this coaching program, he knew he was going to be a bestseller. He just knew it. He just knew it. He didn't know how he'd get there. He'd never written a book before, let alone a bestseller. And he surrendered to the divine wisdom. And was he a world-renowned book writer? Yeah. Was that book a bestseller? Yeah. And that's who I choose to be my leader and my mentor. And my stepsister is also my leader and my mentor sort of in the game of Olympics and like pushing through challenge and creating. And so it'll be like, whoa, I don't know what the fuck's going on. And that's okay. It's okay. It's okay to be here. And it's choosing to be okay. That story, that grace, that loving feminine touch, that nurturing touch that says, it's okay, Paula. It's okay. You don't know. It's okay that you're not there. It's okay that all of that's happening out here. What do we know inside? We know that you got this. If it's to be, it's up to me. And who the fuck are you? I'm a loving, vulnerable, powerful leader. That's what I got. So like, I'm not sexy all the time. I'm not a 10 out of 10. And that's an aspiration. So who do I get to be in the gap? I think is a really juicy lesson. Who do I get to be in the imperfection of my vision? And I think that that's where I harness a lot of power. And that's the power I choose to share and create out in the wilderness. Thank you.
Ooh, you guys are so powerful, amazing women. I'm so grateful and honored that you were a yes to come and speak on this topic. It is a really important one. And something that somebody said to me just a couple days ago is that leaders are becoming hard to trust. Like it's hard to trust the leaders in our world. So like, what is it that sets a leader that you trust and a leader that you don't trust, right? A lot of it is integrity, right? Having your values aligning with your actions and your words. What are other strategies to build and maintain trust with you that resonate with you? Like open communication for me, fostering transparency and honesty is the first one that comes to mind.
I think, the way to build trust is to trust the process. It has to be gradual. We can't demand it as much as we want to. Positional leadership is dead. It's ineffective. It's not about a title or a role. And I think that, positional parenting is a challenge. And, there should be some level of respect, but in our society, these kids, they don't think they have to. They think they're entitled, and that's a whole nother conversation. And we did that to them, to be honest. We did that to them. I did that to my kids. But I think that open, honest communication is absolutely key. People need to know that your agenda is for them, that, there's an alignment on a mission, a vision, the values, all of that. Yes. But that ultimately you're willing to communicate whether you agree or not to make sure you stay on the same page, that we're not constantly wondering what somebody else is thinking or why they're doing what they're doing. And I think, coming from the good old boy network in the chemical industry, I had a lot of hard lessons to learn about being a woman in that space, but also just overcoming just so many people that had a lack of passion or interest in what they were doing. It was a day and age where you went to a company, you just stayed there till you retired, right? And so I think communication was, here's your list, go do your thing. And now we're in a whole different space where people have to know that not only they're being communicated with honestly, but that we value their input. We value them for how they see the world, their perspective, their, what am I trying to say? Their standards, but also their creativity, what they bring to the table, their strengths, their insights. And so open communication, that's kind of a broad category, but it has to go both ways. It has to go both ways. People need to feel seen and known and heard. I can't say that enough, but that's where the trust comes from. And when there is disagreement, you have to be able to navigate those. I mean, as a leader, you get to be directive sometimes. Your job is to hold people to the course that you're on as an organization or whatever it is. But you can do that with a great level of compassion and empathy. And a friend of mine just wrote a book. It's called The Empathy Revolution. And he's been a leader, organizational leader, CEO of many things for a long time. And it is a good sort of framing of where we're going. You know, we get to understand empathy, we get to understand compassion, and we get to be directive. We get to take people where we need them to go. You know, whether we're posting on social media or we're sending out an email blast or we're hosting a summit or whatever it is, we still get to lead people where we're trying to get them to go, but we can do it with that loving leadership that says, I see you and I know you, and I know we're not in the same place or we may disagree, but let's keep going together, right? So I think that's the level of trust this world needs, whether you're posting on social media, you're having a conversation, or you're leading a big organization or starting a world mission. You know, it's got to be a reciprocal trust that's being gained. And we have to not assume that people trust us. We just have to assume we've got to earn that trust. So it's such a great topic.
Amanda, thank you, Tammy.
Oh, thank you. So yes, I would definitely agree with the communication. I mean, looking at our world, looking at the, dating, especially people not following through on their word or just straight up ghosting people has become quite normalized as well. And it's really causing a massive gap in trust. And it's obviously not just in dating and relationships, personal relationships, but that's one example. And I immediately went to, when you were speaking, Tammy, I immediately thought of the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Being impeccable with your word is the first one. And it's just so true. And this is getting into that integrity piece. And it's also being impeccable with your word to yourself. So as within, so without. Again, there's just a lot of different layers to this. So, for me, one space that I'm working on is like, I have all these huge visions, and then I would kind of collapse under the magnitude of it, writing books. And I have literally a list of like 8 now that I'm like, I gotta write these books. And so I have like 2.5 drafts. And so for me, the goal this year is to actually take the step forward to publish, and whether that's self-publishing or I'm calling in a publisher, I'm kind of not attached to, because one book I know has to go through a regular publisher, a mainstream publisher, but I have one that just came through to unleash my creative power, that I'm like, I'm just going to get this out there, whether it's an ebook, I self-publish, whatever, but I'm going to do it. So I stick to my word and get it out there, and I complete a project, and I know this precise trauma incident that has kept me from the completion. I would get 95% of the way with a lot of projects and be like, can't do it. So I understand that layer, but it's the integrity with our word, but then that reflects to other people. You tell other people you're writing a book and you don't do it, well, they're going to be like, well, I don't know about this girl, but the word, so that was one piece. But the word that came through for me this year, and it's very connected to communication. I just blanked on that word. Connection itself. And for me, it's taking communication to a deeper, more intimate and personal level. It's also connection above, within, above and below. Connecting to earth is very important right now because we're very disconnected from the cycles of nature, all that. But connection between other people, building community, people are really craving that. And so, doing doing this has been so beautiful and magical. So thank you again, Margarita, for setting this up. It's just, this is exactly what we need more of, is beautiful, like-minded and hearted souls connecting and sharing. And then more people out there can connect with this kind of, wisdom. I also, another phrase that keeps coming to mind when it comes to this integrity piece is practice what you preach. Because I was told, do as I say, not as I do, when I was growing up. And that's how many of the leaders in our world operate right now, which is why there is a massive crumbling of trust in our external reality as well. People saying, you can't, we've got to cut down on emissions, and then flying private jets to their personal events. The amount of private jets keeps increasing, for one example. So it's like, no, I don't trust you have our best interests in mind whatsoever. And I think people are globally beginning to see that. And I see that really coming to a head this year, 2024. I think we're going to see a lot of massive collective shifts. So we've got to be anchored in ourselves and prepared for that. And so this connection piece is so, so important. Yeah.
Full body chills at everything you just said. Thank you, Amanda. Amazing. Gianna.
So I wanted to touch on a couple things. One of the things is like when, like you were talking about, how can we show like integrity when we're like, or, in our leadership. And I think part of that is like being the all-loving observer and just holding a space of unconditional love for whatever the person in front of us is bringing to us, right? Because they can't heal or be vulnerable or be truthful about what is really going on for them unless they know that we're not going to judge them, right? So being that all-loving observer and just being open and curious and helping hold that space of unconditional love for whatever they're bringing so we can help them to heal it. The other thing I wanted to touch on is, so one of my backgrounds is parent coaching. And one of the things that I learned early on that changed my entire parenting is to parent from a place of empathy. Just whatever your child brings to you, you reflect back what you're hearing them say, listen to them. And when you show them empathy, it actually wires all three parts of their brain together, even before they have access to the higher part of their brain. So when Tammy said like, oh, like kids are disrespectful, it's interesting because I think there's so many unmet needs. And kids have learned how to lie or manipulate because they're afraid of getting in trouble, that when we actually listen to them to see where they're coming from, we can actually learn like what's going on for them. So I remember one time my daughter was in the garage with my husband and my son, and she came into the kitchen and I was making lunch. And she was like, oh, what are you making for lunch? And I was like, told her whatever I was making. And she was like, that's disgusting. I'm not eating it. So of course this could go a lot of ways, right? Like I could be like, oh, she's disrespectful. That's so rude. How dare her? I'm going to send her to a room. I'm going to take away her toys. She can't go on a play date. And instead I just thought, well, this is odd behavior. Like, I wonder what's going on for her. And so I said to her, I'm like, what happened in the garage? And immediately she softened and she came running to me, threw herself at me and started crying. And she said they were going to go to the park and her kite was broken and her brother was trying to fix it. And so she was so upset because she wanted to fly the kite. And in that moment, I could just hold a space of empathy for her. So I think when we stand back and don't judge that something might be rude or whatever, and just see what is going on for this person, how can I hold space for them? How can I deeply understand why their behavior is what it is? Now she has a better understanding of her emotional landscape. she's connected to me and she knows I can help her through these things. And I'm modeling for her how to stay calm when somebody else is upset and triggered and to not take it personally. Because that's what, but so much of our problem, I think, is we try to take on everybody else's issues. We try to absorb their hurt. We try to absorb their this and absorb their that to try to reduce their pain or reduce their suffering. And all we do is weigh ourselves down when we can just hold that space for them and allow them to be the hero of their own journey and to be a witness of it and just to show that unconditional love and empathy. So,
Oh, what a beautiful thing to share. It's so true. Empathy can go a long way. And when it comes to any relationship, when they come to you in that mode, it's a lot of the times it's not about us, right? And so like that with the children also can go with anybody else in your life, your coworker, that neighbor, the person cutting you off on the road. Like if you just sit and get curious of like what they might be going through, you allow it to just kind of dissipate and you don't take it on as your own caca, as Paula loves to say. Go ahead, Paula.
So what I'm hearing is like you've been next level, very loving. You know, if my mom had shown up for me that way when I was young, I would have had a very different experience, right? But me, I was always a very vulnerable person. I was always very energized, energetic, expressive. My dad would call me sensitive, and I'm like, why? Because I fucking feel shit. And like 3/4 of the caca I got to clean up was the bullshit from my parents, right? Because I am empathic. I do feel everything. I made their bullshit my fucking bullshit. Ugh. And so like that's all semantics and all that. But like brass tacks, love, right? And so I love this word community. I love it because I actually energize with community. I love team, aka community, and I am choosing it all day. So I live in a townhouse complex, and my mom lives across the street in the next townhouse complex. I moved to here first 5 years ago. She moved here 2 years ago. So we're sister complexes. There's over 400 units. I sell real estate. I went door knocking twice last year. So that's 800 experiences. Now, let me tell you, did I feel community? Not at all. Did I feel the love? Not at all. Do you know what I did feel? Nothing good. I had people, I was like, hey, neighbor, it's your neighbor, number 32. Looking through the curtains, I had people, you could hear them in the kitchen rummaging, and then they would stop, hey, it's your neighbor. And they would stop, and then they continue. So what I want to share with you is, yeah, I think fundamentally, we know we are humans, social, community-based, but are we living authentically? No. My experience of human beings is they don't know what the fuck they want. No. Because although in the heart of hearts, they're like, I want to feel safe in my community. Well, did I feel safe in my community? Did I think that anyone gave a shit enough about me that if I was screaming for help, they would come? No. That's a hard no. So what I want to say is society is living sensationally inauthentically because fundamentally we know we want to be in unison and connected. And I think the powers that be are want us to feel some other way. COVID, 3 years of separation. I mean, my ex-boyfriend and I didn't get to see each other for a whole year because my stepfather was terrified. He lived in fear. And then that fear took over my whole living space. And I didn't get to enjoy my loving connection for a year because I shared space with him. So point being, we have the fundamental desires of as humans camouflaged with a mountain of shit. Because I know we want community, but my experience out in the wilderness is they don't want community. So authenticity is an integral aspect of the breakdown of society, I'd say, or the lack thereof. Authenticity. I'm complete.
Yeah, and I think authenticity, the keys there are vulnerability, right? Allowing yourself to be vulnerable. And yeah, like we've all said in one way or a form here on this in this room is that we fear judgment, fear criticism, fear stepping out of the box, right? Another thing, and we all kind of said, we talked about empathy and understanding the person can create and maintain trust. And I think another really good one is being consistent. Like your behavior, your actions. Being consistent creates and builds trust. Because if you know, one day I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I think somebody else said about, Amanda writing the book, and then you don't write the book. People are going to start not trusting you, right? And then you go, oh, I want to be a waitress today. And then next week you see me and I'm like, oh, I decided I'm going to be a flight attendant. A month from now, I was like, yeah, I never did that. I'm going to go to school for nursing. And it's like, people are going to stop trusting my word and what I say, right? And that goes down to having like personal accountability too, being responsible for your actions and their impact on them, their impact of your actions. And that goes back down to being responsible, right? Being fully responsible for how you're showing up. And if we could just all agree that making a mistake is not making us a bad person or evil person, we are likely to take ownership of that easier, right? A lot of times we're like, well, it's not my mistake. That person made me do that. Well, it's because he said this and I did that, and so it's not my fault. Sometimes we don't even want to take responsibility for showing up late, and we come up with stories of why we're late. When we committed and promised, we gave our word that we would be showing up at a certain time, and then we're not there. And all those little things start to break that trust between you and that person. All those broken promises, all those empty promises. And so, it goes back to what we've all said, like knowing what you want, who you are. Then we'll probably, by default, we'll only commit to the things we know that we're capable of following through on, or the things that align with what we want to do. Because half the time we say yes to stuff we don't want to do. We know we don't want to, but we say yes anyway. And then when the time comes, we're like, I didn't want to do it anyway, so I'm just not going to show up. Or I'm going to show up and I'm going to half-ass it, and I'm just going to be the third wheel over here dragging the whole group behind, or the Debbie Downer. Like showing up in these ways when we say I call it the dirty yes, when you're the dirty yes, and so, and I think the other thing that builds trust too is this demonstrating competency. Like how many times have we seen leaders in our world or people that are in coaching and you're like, wow, like you really are doing as I say, not as I do. That's how you're leading the world right now. And it's hard, right? Because trust doesn't happen in big, grandiose things, right? It's all the small little things that start to build trust. I think Brené Brown, in one of her books, Daring Greatly, I think it's called, she talks about the marble, what is she called? The trust, right? The trust marble jar. And it's all small acts of kindness. And, like, for instance, if I saw you in the room and I could tell you were down, that I'm busy because I have to run to go get my kids or go run an errand or something. I was like, I'm choosing to not be in me and go to see what's up with Paula. Hey, Paula, you all right? You need a hug? And that little act will build trust with her. And then, something as small as, Tammy, you told me that one time in passing that you were allergic to mushrooms. And then 5 months from now, I was like, oh, I want to have you for dinner, but I know you can't have mushrooms because you're allergic. That builds trust because you're like, oh, she remembered. She cared enough about me to remember. She cares about me. And a lot of times we just feel trust. I don't know. Trust is something that we all want, but it feels eluding. Like the more we chase it, the more it runs from us. And it goes back to what we said in the beginning. It's because we haven't gone in to learn how to trust ourselves, trust our gut, trust our intuition, trust. And we won't know how to trust ourselves if we don't know what we want, if we don't get intimate with ourselves to hear and see who we are. past the limiting beliefs, like who we truly are and the essence of who we are, and why we're here and being on purpose. Go ahead.
It just reminds me that one of the things I work on with clients often is like not only calling in their higher self and creating that relationship so they can like go within and find the answers that they need instead of looking out, but also being your own best friend. So what you were saying, right? Like if you say yes when you want to say no, or you over obligate yourself, or you take on too many things, or you, don't do the thing that you say you're going to do, like being your own best friend is so crucial to that piece too, because you can't rely on other people to always be available, or, wherever you go, there you are. You're the only constant in your entire life. So loving yourself unconditionally, being your own best friend, and listening to your higher self, your intuition. So important. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we haven't really touched on, we kind of have touched on, but not the word itself, is this idea of vulnerability too. And I think that, I work with a lot of business owners, even, some that are solopreneurs, and we have to build that know, like, and trust, right? That's why we have to have a personal brand or our marketing strategies. But even as a a parent or somebody out there dating, I mean, you have to have your personal brand now. And that comes back to this idea that we know who we are. And in order to influence or attract the right clients or partner or results, using our influence, it comes down to know, like, and trust. And, it was interesting because when I first started using social media in my business and whatnot, I was like, well, I don't really have a lot of trouble getting people to know and like me because I'm an open book and I am, I smile all the time and I share openly and blah, blah, blah. But that trust piece, as we're talking about today, I realized I'm like, well, I'm trustworthy. Why wouldn't anybody trust me? Well, because they don't know you. They have no idea who you are. And I think that the vulnerability piece has been really challenging for me to figure out, because we get to share our emotions so that we are relatable. We get to share our stories, so that we're relatable. But just as I shared, I mean, the stuff that I've been through is really very tragic, very triggering on a lot of levels for other people. And so it took a long time to understand, like, being vulnerable isn't just about like telling everybody all your junk. It's about really understanding yourself, understanding your emotions, understanding your feelings, and sharing it when it's appropriate to make the connection. Just like I think Amanda was talking about this connection, like it's beyond communication. It's about developing that deeper level of connection. And I heard somebody say, she was actually an ambassador to the king of the UAE. And anyway, it's this incredible woman with low self-confidence. I'm like, girl, you sat at the table of the king of the UAE as a Black Christian woman in another country because he wanted your wisdom about diversity and inclusion. Anyway, a cool story. But she said to me, she said, it was really hard to know how to be authentic, because you want to honor the culture, you want to honor the expectations, you want to honor the people that you're connecting with, and you want to show up as your authentic best self. And so the only way to do that is to just vulnerably say, like, I don't know if I should cover my face or not say, I'm American, I'm not covering my face, right? And find that balance, because and that's kind of an extreme example, but in any kind of relationship where you're trying to build trust, to be able to say, I know how I feel about this, but I want to know how you feel about this, or I want to know your position on that, because they're less likely to be defensive and take that hard stand if they know that you're open to where they're actually coming from. And so that woman that I was talking about, she called it strategic vulnerability. And I love that, because it's about being thoughtful. in what we're sharing, and not just saying, this is who I am, take me or leave me, this is my authentic best self, but it's about doing it in a way that is all about the relationship. It's all about connecting on a deeper level. And that comes down to admitting your mistakes. It also, doing what you believe is right. If you're challenged not to do something outside of your values, it comes down to, not being all about self-promotion. Like, we're not here to tell everybody, believe me, believe me, believe me, trust me, trust me, trust me. It's about really getting into the mind of the potential person, client or peer or employee or whatever, and saying, I'm not here to make you know me better. I'm here to know you better so that I can be more effective with you. Right. And it's hard because all we see is the influencers out there saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. And that self-promotion piece is very, very hard to navigate too, because we want to build credibility. As I was saying, it was hard to build that trust. I had to build the credibility. I had to be able to post testimonials and share other people's experience with me. But the most important thing was that it was other people speaking their truth about me rather than me telling you my truth about me, right? So I think as we're kind of closing this out, I think this idea of trust is so deep on so many levels, and it really has to be focused on the relationship. What is the relationship you're trying to create, and what is it that you're trying to influence? What is it you're trying to move forward in that relationship? So I'm just really grateful. This has been such a fantastic conversation.
Yes, I love what you pointed out about what I heard was like intentionality behind vulnerability and being in the seeking to understand you before I want you to understand me. And I think that's the book of the seven habits of highly effective people, where it says that. And it was just like, there's so much power there.
Yeah.
Because it builds trust, connection, intimacy, vulnerability, authenticity, all those things.
Yeah.
I get born by just leaning in and getting to know somebody first, instead of being, look at me, this is what I do. And because we are that whole me society.
Yeah.
And that's what we think that we want to be, but it's like, no, I'm tired of talking about myself. I really want to know who you are and how I can be in generous giving in your life, in your world, and how we can empower one another and rise one another up. That's the game I'm playing now.
Yeah.
Not about
Well,
competition.
one of my mentors, thought leaders that I follow is John Maxwell, and he's been, guru of leadership in so many sectors for so many years. He's written like 80 books, but one of his books is Everybody Communicates, Few Connects. And it's a really good book on, building connection over just communicating at people. But one of the ideas is that, we're all communicating something, always, whether you intend to or not. With your facial expressions, with your eyes, with your stance, whether you're smiling or frowning or whatever it is, and written and unwritten, we're always communicating something. So is your intention to truly connect or just get your point across? Right?
Beautiful point.
And yeah.
Paula.
It's hard to be the with 4 minutes for this, because like it's really just my whole world. Tammy, I am an emotional person, right? Like, I am an empath. I was born this way, and I don't use that word candidly. It took me a long time to be okay with it. Cool. So like, my solar plexus is my design, my human design. My whole shebang comes from my solar plexus, and I am an emotional creature. And it took me 10 years and a lot of money to be okay with this way of being, okay that I am this person, and acknowledging it for its greatness. And so, as I am me, I cannot speak to anybody else on this planet, but as I am experiencing myself and unraveling myself and accessing and leveraging my assets, aka my empathy and my feelings, there's no such thing as being strategic. That would take me out of my authenticity. My vulnerability is my personal power. And so my experience of people resonating with me or not is like, I cry. I cry from joy. I cry from all kinds of things. I cry at least once a day, and take it to the bank that I fuck people up. when I cry. I've had people calling me, oh, that doesn't serve the situation. I'm like, I'm sorry, my feelings doesn't serve this situation. So there's nothing being strategic. Like, I'm not going to say, no, now's not the time to cry. No, my feelings are mine. I am a powerful leader in feeling my feelings. Now, I'm going to piggyback that with, I've got emotional intelligence. That's another conversation, right? It's like, am I intelligent enough to know that, whoa, like, what is this response, Paula? Is this a sad response? Is this a triggered response? Like, at least I have the capacity and knowledge to assess and manage myself. So like, I'll feel my feelings, I move through them. I'm fucking fast and shifting because I'm an expert with my feelings. So like, I choose to empower all people in life in feeling your feelings. Society is unexpressed. The mountain of caca is from a lack of expression, right? And we're all here today saying, oh, let's live vulnerably. Okay, well, let us not be strategic about that. Let us be that. And vulnerability by textbook definition, and why this is in my radar is because my presentation is about vulnerability and authenticity. The definition of vulnerability is the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed. So I choose to harness vulnerability as I will cry. I don't care how it makes anybody else feel, because I get to feel my feelings. And me being powerful in that would be like, whoa, somebody else wants to cry? Yes, cry. Cry if you want to. Feel those fucking feelings and let them go. So there's something to be had with not being strategic in feeling and saying, that's okay. When my niece hurts herself and cries, that's okay, baby, you're good. When my nephew gets punched in the face from his brother, that's not cool. And how do you feel about that? You're angry? Okay, let's talk about it. Like, let's be okay with feelings. Let's learn how to show up for feelings. Let's acknowledge the conversation that comes from feelings. So like, I'm feeling all day, Tammy, all day, and I'm cool with it. I'm not strategic. I'm intelligent. And there is that conversation, and we could empower children with that all day. I'm complete. Thank you. Cheers.
Yes, vulnerability in your authenticity, like in those moments when, even saying, there's something that I want to share with you, but I'm scared because I'm scared that you might judge me. I'm scared that you're going to take it the wrong way, or like whatever it is, like speaking from that is being vulnerable. And then you can be authentic, right? And we have one time for one more, Amanda, and then we are good to go. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say fascinating conversation, and thank you all so much for showing up and being vulnerable and authentic. I think you're both correct. I think there's the time for that emotional vulnerability where you're expressing yourself. And then there's also completely different scenarios, which I think is actually what you were explaining. Each of you was explaining a quite different scenario in which you might be showing up vulnerably, because I think sometimes people are not sometimes across the board, people can be way too diplomatic, and then for a professional situation like Tammy was describing, I think there's a lot to be said for showing up with trying to honor, their customs and their culture, to try to understand everybody, because I think that's how we're going to come together as a global community, so people can eventually, see that we are all one, and all of these cultures and religious traditions are really just tribal mentalities, and we can still honor the beauty in these traditions at the same time. And we'll all eventually come to this space of unity. And I just want to, it feels very connected and aligned, and I'm seeing your background, Margarita, the rose. When it comes to vulnerability and authenticity, I use the symbol of the rose a lot to visualize how we can be very much in our vulnerable, divine, feminine essence without being, like seen as too whatever by somebody else's definition. Or I don't even know what the exact way to explain this is, but the rose has thorns and stands very tall and strong on their stem. That's having strong boundaries and a firm knowing of thyself. And then the rose itself blossoms into divine beauty and expressing her most fragrant divine essence out for the world to appreciate. So for me, it's that duality that comes into this beautiful wholeness of standing deeply, authentically in integrity with your truth, but then at the same time allowing yourself to blossom open. And then everybody respects and loves the rose for her doing that, for her showing up in that way. So I hope that resonates, and I will leave it there because I know we're a little over now, and this has been such a magical conversation. So again,
And
thank
the
you.
rose also is the highest vibration frequency flower plant, anything in the world. So has amazing healing properties. So if anybody is into essential oils, doTERRA, Young Living, those are the two that I know and trust to be therapeutic grade. Rose, get yourself some hands on some rose, or just stop and smell the roses. That's what they say, that stop and smell the roses. I'm literally healing you. So today I just want to thank all the beautiful, powerful, amazing, authentic, and vulnerable women coming to share on the topic of trust. As you can see, it is a very important aspect of coming home to us and how we relate to the world and how we are building connections and relationships in our lives. And so I just wanted to honor you and leave you with this. Building trust is a process, and it requires time, effort, and a genuine commitment to these principles. It's about creating a foundation of mutual respect and understanding where all parties feel valued and heard. And I think we've all said, all of us shared something in our shares today that kind of this paragraph encapsulates that. So I just want to say thank you so much. And if you are finding yourself in a place of limiting beliefs or ready to choose life, reach out to me. And if you want to reach out to any of these women, I'd be happy to give you their information. And just it's time to choose you, to rise up and rise each other up and show up for one another, but show up for you first. So thank you. Until next week. Have a beautiful weekend, and just keep rising each other up and holding one another high and holding the space for growth.